Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you for listening. This is Collapse Talk, and I hope you're having a good time and keeping your head up and just doing what you can, considering how dire things seem at the moment. Honestly, the world has been in worse positions before all this madness, but yeah, we're in an unprecedented territory, to say the least. So, as I'm recording today, you might notice some noise. I wanted to record in a more quieter setting. I probably should have done this earlier. But we are kind of in the eve of a major weather event. So I'm just going to have to record and edit this really quickly because it's expected to have like some serious tornadoes and hail and flash flooding. So this is kind of like the quiet before the storm, although there's still some wind. And yeah, I've been trying to warn people about what's coming our way, and they're like, really? Oh, like, so I'm just like, fuck, like, I don't know. I'm hoping for the best, but right now I just wanted to at least record and get this out of the way, get this done quickly in case like the power goes out. But yeah, other than that though, I wanted to continue just talking about just the recent events, and I'm still gonna focus primarily on this Ukraine war because I mean this is like it's just crazy to watch and unfold. It's like it's like a horror movie. Like you just can't watch it. Like you can't look away at the same time. It's horrific, and it's just like what is this like? So yeah, like that's kind of like I don't want to downplay it in that sense, but it's just like wow, like and so many people are still uninformed about it. I mean, I don't blame them because this is a really like depressing situation to learn about. But I do my program, so I have to stay informed. And honestly, it is interesting to just see how modern warfare forces are just forces us to adapt, or not us. I mean, us as in humans forces the Russian forces to adapt and just do their best because they're really fucking up. They're people are just like characterizing them as a laughing stock. Really, I feel that they're just like trying to like pick things up a bit. The Institute for the Study of War, they officially declared a stalemate. They've failed in their initial invasion phase. So the war is starting to evolve. It's starting to become more long range. They're using missiles and artillery because they don't have air superiority. They still haven't secured that. So they have to use munitions. They have to start shooting it, and they're just gonna have to start slowly encircling the cities. And this is gonna become a war of attrition. Yeah, man. I think Russia is in for a really bad time in terms of this war, and then now we have this the whole world is just going to isolate Russia. Like this is really really bad. This is unprecedented, this level of isolation, and I feel like it is overboard. I really do. I understand though. I mean, because like we can't keep doing business with because this is like unacceptable, this war. But I feel like this is going to have some unintended consequences. It could drive the populace further towards isolationism and just fanatical ultranationalism. Like it could really get that way because things are going to get so bad. Like because it's a pride thing. I will say there probably are like a lot of younger people that don't like Putin, and certainly yeah, there's certainly a lot of people that want more democratic changes and want to rid the corruption. But just Russia's just had like a history of just corrupt oligarchies and authoritarian systems, and I'm certainly not qualified to comment on like why that's the case, but that has been the history. Maybe it's just the geography and the conditions that force people to live under the boot of a strongman. Who knows? Like there's so many theories. We can talk about that all day. But just for right now, I just want to say at least like because this is a very nuanced situation. People want to pretend like it is good and evil, and in some aspects it is that way, but it's still very gray and nuanced. And it, like it, I want to I really want to say things, but at the same time I don't want to make a statement and then I can't even frame it. It's just like, because there's so many nuances now. Of course, say like with Zelensky, right? He's been a figure. He's been the poster boy, right? Like people are like fanboying, like the groupies, and like it's crazy. Like the celebrity media and fanatical worship of charismatic figures that we have in this commercialized consumer media. Yeah, it's just it's turning this situation like into a movie, because that's the only way people can frame it. And I've been guilty of that also, because this is just unprecedented. We can't even frame like what's happening to us right now. So with Zelensky, I want to say at least that I do have respect for the guy, because he's standing up and he's saying like, oh, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. And it's just like, dude, this fucking guy, and yeah, man, I can't help but respect him. But recently there's been some developments, and he's taken some steps with in terms of curbing opposition forces, quote unquote pro-Russian sentiments in the government, or just like political opposition. It's just like, okay, this is not a good step. And I read also about somebody, they were talking about how Zelensky had essentially basically a role model, and that role model's name was Stepan Bandera. And this was effectively just like an ultranationalist figure during World War II. And this is the more I look into it, I'm like, man, these Nazi ties are a lot deeper. So it's so yeah, this is a very nuanced situation. I'm not saying that Zelensky is a Nazi, but like just seeing the things that are happening now, and like especially with like the Azov units, because like this war is like they're getting good combat experience. They're getting weapons and arms, and they're getting recruits and people, and it's just like, what's gonna happen after this war is done? I think it's not gonna be good, because it's just like, oh my god, just to think about it. And there's also just you see how the Russians are just leaving behind just armored units, because they're getting stuck in the mud. So that's why they're stuck on the roads right now, because the mud is sucking up all these trucks and tanks, and then the farmer comes along and tows it away with the tractor. So how many civilians right now have possession of state of the art? Well, I shouldn't say state of the art, because a lot of this is run down stuff, but it's more just it's still can you imagine just farmers with tanks, and they're just defending, dude, this is crazy, what's happening. And yeah, man, so everything that's happening, the media isn't presenting it fully. They're certainly not going to talk about the Nazi ties, and there's been NATO just put out a tweet about these these anti-Soviet partisans fighting in World War II. It's who also were fighting the Soviets in World War II? It's just this is very interesting what's happening. And then I also want to talk about in terms of Russian isolationism, because there's the economic isolationism, but then there's I've read somewhere some college courses they've taken out Dostoevsky, and soon enough, I'm not gonna find Tolstoy, because War and Peace is gone. When does it end? People, this is tragic. There's a lot of emotions. People are very emotional, and of course, they don't understand the full nuances. So they can only attribute. They can say, "Oh, Russia," we gotta hate Russia now. And this is the way America has always been when it comes to attacks from other countries. I mean, Russia hasn't attacked us, but we're in a new Cold War. That's what's happening. In fact, a Russian or a U.S. diplomat in Moscow was summoned. Summoned. We summon you, sir. President Biden called Putin a war criminal, and that's of course gonna make Putin upset, and it's gonna make the government upset. They can't, you can't be calling, and it's ironic considering it's the U.S. government calling Russian government war criminals. It's just like, oh man, where are things heading right now? Because if diplomatic talks break down with U.S. or just the West and Russia, where are things gonna go? It's just, wow, man. So that's what I'll at least talk about for the moment. And I'll keep talking about this war situation, quoting from the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW. But before I do that, at least, I also want to talk about, the developments from the Foreign Legion, the Volunteer Foreign Legion in Ukraine. Everybody was all rah-rah about that, and I know there's a subreddit about that. But yeah, they were, deploying them, and they had operators, and they had people from all over the world, and like people with like serious combat experience. So, this is like basically like, like they can't fight. Think about it. Like you can't have like Navy SEALs, U.S. Navy SEALs fighting like Spetsnaz and Chechen forces. So the retired ones that are no longer under oath with the United States government, like, oh no, I'm just a civilian. I'm just a tourist. They just got all these guns and wow, man. But yeah, so that's basically what's happened. And they could have put like some serious like force. They could have been some pretty good effective. They could have had some good use on the field. Although I don't think the Ukrainian government would have utilized them well. But yeah, it's I read somewhere like about 20,000 foreign legionaries. So yeah, they were ready to deploy them, and they were at this base. And some of you may have already not read by now. They got absolutely obliterated. They got bombed with missiles, and they had jets just hovering over them and just poof, poof, just. And they used the thermobaric warheads. And for those who don't know how that works or what that is essentially it's a warhead that deploys, over the target. So it's basically an airburst, or it releases the aerosols which combusts with the oxygen, and so that ignites, of course, creates an explosion. And then it creates a pressure differential, I guess, and the air gets sucked back in. That's why it's called a vacuum bomb. So yeah, it's just a devastating weapon. It can completely like incinerate human bodies, like just completely reduce you to carbon. So it's not a good weapon, and they're using this. The Russians are using this against civilians. They're all, it's just crazy what they're doing. But they're also, using it. I mean, that's what they did with the legionary encampment. I guess it was a base that they had, some training center, which is crazy. Like they had all the coordinates, and people were recording like this. Dude, like I hope to God I never find myself in like a trench line, and then some guy's doing a TikTok dance. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? There's like dead bodies all over the place. Like that's just what's gonna happen. But it's yeah, like people were I guess filming and recording, so the Russians already knew where the base was, and they already knew that there's high experienced troops here, foreign legionaries here. let's bomb the shit out of them. And that's exactly what happened. And now those foreign troops are leaving. And yeah, some of the reports that are coming from them, they're saying like, they had to get pulled aside by some humanitarian workers, some social workers, because like anybody over the age of 18 is getting pulled out, especially if you had signed on as a foreign legion. Like, dude, like they're not kidding, and they're just telling people like, do not come here because they are going to throw you out there just so they can waste the ammo, and then they'll like, it's just like, yeah, you're nothing. I'm kind of glad I never had that, like not for a second did I ever think of doing that. So yeah, like as you've read, like I said, my line would have been, say, Finland or the Baltic states. But I never for a second, like, I seriously thought, yeah, I'm gonna go to Ukraine. Like that has never been a thought in my mind. And I'm really, because like I actually understand what war is with the limited, well, no, zero experience with combat. But like, people are saying, oh, yeah, you thought this was Call of Duty. Well, I don't play Call of Duty. I play Arma and Squad. So yeah, it's completely random. You have zero control of when it happens, and yeah, there's no regeneration, there's no checkpoints. so that's happening at least. I mean, people are still gonna go and they're gonna fight. So good for them. But yeah, I think this war is just really reaching a stalemate. They're having talks, and they've already kind of declared that, or Ukraine has already made declarations that they aren't going to join NATO, and also asking for security guarantees. So they're going to continue these talks. But despite what agreements and treaties are signed, like the devastation of this war is going to be something that's irreparable. And I don't know what Putin is thinking, like, especially considering how poorly these troops are performing. Like the morale is low. The supply lines are completely over. I mean, okay, not even like overwhelmed or overdrawn. Like, just they don't even exist. There's no supply lines to begin with. They're just looting and they're begging. Like, they're literally just like knocking on people's like doors, and they're just like, "Hey, do you have food?" Like, dude, like, this is a snapshot of what this new age of warfare is going to be, because there's going to be the mechanized component of it. It's going to be highly digital, and it's going to be cyber and advanced and whatever. But also, what we have to understand is that there's going to be resource problems, and because that's effectively what these wars are about now. It's going to become a resource war now between the different powers, and it's going to get medieval. I mean, we're seeing it now. They're literally just like going into supermarkets and just like stealing like food, and like I read one report like they went into the store and they had never seen tangerines before. I don't necessarily believe that, but it's still like, it speaks to like how these soldiers, they're sending mainly like conscripts. So like, these are not like the strongest guys, the most experienced guys that they're sending. They're just sending in, okay, go in there and just cause mayhem, I guess. I mean, and yeah, it doesn't seem like they have like any like effective like NCO like system. So because they're having like major commanders on the field, like in the front lines, and they're dying. Like, they're killing a lot of commanders. The Ukrainians are killing a lot of Russian commanders. They killed like 3 different commanders in like a 24-hour period. So I'm gonna start reading from the latest, the March 20th statement from the Institute for the Study of War. And it's this is a good rundown of what's exactly happening and how things are unfolding. So you read some of these reports, and it's like it's just straight up incompetence. Like the Russian high command is just so corrupt and incompetent. Like they do not care about the lives of their men. Like holy shit. So just key points, and again, we don't necessarily understand the fog of war, so there could be some exaggerations, but like some of these reports that are coming out from the just basically like the troops and the high command, and it's just like just in general, like it doesn't look good. Like this is like the type of thing that could set up a mutiny for real. Like wow, man. So yeah, so some key points at least from the Institute for the Study of War, or the ISW. They wanted to at least talk about the fact that they're setting up the population for general mobilization, not just in Russia, but also in those occupied territories in the DNR and the LNR, those republics that have been declared. And they're saying how they're conscripting students in those universities over there over the age of 18, but they have like basically zero equipment, and the morale is terrible. They're also in Russia. They're also starting to mobilize what's called this this like Russian youth army. So basically, like these cadet soldiers. They're like just fucking Boy Scouts, like 17, 18-year-old soldiers. It's like, oh man, this war must be going great, right? It's just crazy what they're doing. Let me also read. So I'm quoting directly from the ISW. Quote, the Ukrainian General Staff reported on March 19th that Russian officials severely reprimanded the head of the 652nd Unit of Information and Psychological Operations for his weak efforts and inability to create the Kherson People's Republic. So they've taken Kherson, which is like the largest city under their occupation in the southern region near Crimea, and I guess they're trying to like balkanize. Like this kind of tells you what their plans are, because they want to fully occupy the country and just balkanize it. It's like, so you're gonna have all these different, so that, like they have oblasts. So I guess Kherson Oblast is like its own like province. So they're just gonna create independent states, and then the plan is to annex them. Like, what the hell is going on? Also, they talk about just mounting casualties and insubordination and desertions that they're facing. So, in particular, they talk about these VDV units, which are paratrooper units. And the reports that have been coming out, how they've been using these paratrooper units, it's just like, it actually makes me angry. Because, like, I mean, it's just like, dude, these are like highly skilled, highly trained men that, like, if used effectively, that are a serious force. And they just like sent in basically, so in Hostomel, which is like an airport near Kiev, they sent in waves of these helicopters, I guess Mi-8s, and which are transport helicopters, and they had these paratrooper units, and they took them to the airport, but they just dropped the paratroopers in with no armored support nearby, nowhere. They hadn't even started the blitz yet. No air superiority. Like, I guess they wanted to like bring in like transports and like just drop in, the armor through the airport, which could have worked, but they still didn't have anything in the area, like anything on the ground, and still no air superiority. Like they still right now they have no air superiority. Like this is crazy. Yeah, those paratrooper units got decimated. The just completely obliterated. Like they're just gone, either captured or dead. In fact, like, not to be graphic, but like I saw like a photo of the remains of what was a paratrooper that had just been killed, and some stray dogs got to it. Like, yeah, it's like And I don't like look at those things to get any like it's just, like I don't. It's not good. Like it's just something that I have to understand that this is what war is. It is just yeah the worst. The worst. The how do I say this? You see the best of people in certain circumstances, but it's just complete darkness and evil and chaos and destruction. So yeah, man. And then also, there was a report also of another paratrooper brigade or paratrooper unit being dropped in the middle of the ocean. Can you imagine that? Like, what? Do you think they knew that when they were going down? Like, oh yeah, we're. It's like they just looked down. It's like, is that the fucking ocean? Yeah, you're going to jump. Like, oh my god, dude. Like, I'm pissed off. And this is supposedly the enemy. These are the guys that I'm supposed to hate, but I understand how like they're being abused by their commanders, and it's just like, God, like I'm pissed off at the upper echelon, not these guys. So, and, again, and there have been reports of abuse from Russian troops and rapes and like looting and pillaging, as I said. And as this war gets more, as it gets dragged on further and further, it's going to get more brutal, especially if these supply lines are overdrawn. Like, yeah, man, like this could get really, really bad, really, really bad. So I don't want to like just read the full like quote the full report from the ISW, but they do talk at least about just the primary efforts of the Russian invasion, because their goal is complete occupation. But if you actually see their front lines, like they still haven't they can't even like they still haven't occupied the eastern side of the Dnipro, so because there's still like a whole like army group there, and it seems that that army group is getting encircled. And of course nobody's going to ever hear from my end in the Ukrainian high command, but that army group cannot get encircled, because if they're encircled, then like that's over, checkmate. So like hopefully they're making like retreats and rearguard actions to Zaporizhia, because that river Dnipro, like that's not like a little stream, that's a serious body of water. So like you could use that, you can use effective choke points to halt the Russian advance, because and again like it's like you don't want to give up like half your country, but at the same time it's like you also don't want to like get your main army encircled. So it's like, what options do you do? So in a way, like they kind of have to do maybe a scorched earth sort of deal, and just like completely like evacuate the population, get as many people out of there as possible, and completely raise everything and deny the enemy any sort of supplies, any sort of fuel that they can use. Because that's the only way that's it. Because their supply lines are already fucked. So if they can't loot our stores and loot our gas stations and fuel depots, and yeah, try to cross the Dnieper now. So again, I'm not some people might think that what I'm saying is super cruel. Like I'm trying to take into account civilians, and like everybody needs to get evacuated. They like unfortunately like they're going to lose their homes, but on the same hand, it's just like, do you want to like live under Russian occupation? Because like again, like I really don't understand how anybody could say like, yeah, life under Russian rule for Ukraine is going to be better. Like, how do you honestly believe that? Like I don't believe that for a second. So anyway, people of course they don't want like a drawn out war, and I can understand that. But it's just interesting to me how they could say like, oh, insurgency in Ukraine is just unnecessary and you're bringing unnecessary harm, but then insurgency in Middle Eastern countries, well, that's justified because it's their homes and they're fight. Like, do you see now like the double standard? Again, I don't want this to be an attack against any certain leftists. I'm just like, because I can understand the points that they're making. It's just that, despite whatever criticisms that people are making about the West and NATO, which I certainly agree with, like, this war is unjustified. This occupation, this massacre of the Ukrainian people is unjustified. Like, there's, I again, and then for what? So some concessions of like, okay, fine, we're not gonna join your fucking that fucking club you don't like. Like that. That's it. You're gonna kill my population because I was thinking maybe I might join a club. Like, oh my goodness, that's basically what this is all about. Like, it's just like high school politics, except millions of people's lives are at stake. But anyway, I was gonna talk at least the main efforts from the Russian army. Their invasion and attempted occupation of the country. So the main effort is Kiev, and they're attempting to encircle that. They still haven't encircled Kiev. Like, it's crazy. Like the prime minister of Poland, and I guess and like Slovakia, I think the Czech Republic as well. They went into Kiev. They're like, fuck you. Like, it's just like, this is crazy. Imagine if Biden goes to Kiev. Oh my God, like, that'd be a fucking big dick Sigma male power move. Just like, anyway, yeah, like, they haven't encircled Kiev, although they're getting artillery in position and rocket batteries, so if they can't encircle the city, they're gonna bomb the shit out of it, and that's what it's gonna turn into. Although they still they don't have air superiority. Like, that's just still crazy to me that they haven't accomplished that yet. They're also attempting to take Kharkiv. They still haven't taken Kharkiv. It's under Ukrainian controlled, or they did for a time. There was the initial phase that they overran the defenses, and then there was a counterattack by the Ukrainians. So it's been kind of going back and forth, and they've been bombing and such. So that's been a hot spot. And also just a broader effort in that Luhansk area they're trying to take. The Russians are trying to take Luhansk. Another effort is with Mariupol and the Donetsk Oblast. And Mariupol is definitely the worst fighting. And probably there's a case to be made that this is probably some of the worst fighting since like Grozny, or just in general with urban warfare. And the Ukrainian defenders are putting up a good fight, but I don't want to be like complimenting them too much, because this is the Azov units, those Nazis. So on one hand, like, I don't want Russia to have this victory, because if they take the city, then it's a pretty significant step in their invasion and occupation. But at the same time, they're also fighting Nazis, so it's like, oh, fucking curb stop them. Like, so, and there's also reports that these Azov units are like brutalizing civilians, and yeah, like, I saw some images of like, I don't know if it was exactly the Azov, an Azov soldier, although I wouldn't doubt it. But what was happening is they were like wrapping people to poles and basically leaving them out in the cold. And on occasion, they would pull people's pants down and just leave their like genitals hanging out. In fact, there was an image of a young woman, and they had her pants down. So it's just like, Jesus Christ, like, what the fuck is going on? That's war. That's the SHTF. And even on the good, supposed good guys, the good side, there's gonna be some wild dogs that are gonna they just want to use that outlet to brutalize and torture people. Unfortunately, that is the nature of war. You just don't want like a whole unit dedicated to having sociopaths, torturers, and like, yeah, you don't want that. Okay, so it's one thing if you just have one crazy guy in the unit, but people don't like it. It's another thing when you have a whole unit where everybody's like, hey, yeah, okay, let's fucking go. Like, you don't want that. So it is interesting to me that they're still around. There's been people talking about like the depoliticalization, that they said, yeah, they've been depoliticized, but I'm like, they still have that like SS bullshit on their insignia. So like, I don't think so. Man, this is a very nuanced issue that I still need to learn on. Again, my heart is with the Ukrainian people. Just the civilians are in a shitty situation. And I'm on the side of Ukrainian sovereignty, but not this path of like ultranationalism, because it's just the West in general has an issue with Nazis and far right people. It's just that like military conflicts exacerbate that. So these nut jobs are going to be stronger, and they're going to be far more integrated into society. They're going to be in a serious position. Like, dude, there's going to be people that are going to run for office that are going to be directly from the Azov battalion. But because they fought in this war, if Ukraine wins and manages to force Russia to pull back and all that, these Azov soldiers are going to be like heroes, which is like, what? So yeah, this is a really weird situation that's happening. And the more I read up on it, I'm just like, okay. So yeah, as I've been saying, right? So Mariupol is, the worst of the fighting. The city's encircled. This is like a serious humanitarian situation, because they're the Russian troops encircling the city. They're denying humanitarian convoys. They're opening fire and dropping shells on the convoys, and people are melting down the snow for water, which is not healthy. Like the food situation is not good. There's been reports they just have to like leave the bodies out on the street because there's too much bombing. Like this is bad. This is like a horrific situation that's happening. So yeah, so that's like the worst of the fighting at the moment, and there are projections for the city to fall within the next couple of weeks. Who knows? Also, they're as I was talking about with Kherson, they were attempting to create an independent republic there. But what's been happening there is that the population there is not too happy. I mean, it's not just Kherson. Like many different cities are under Russian occupation are experiencing these protests, and these people are unarmed, and they're just like standing in front of the trucks and the tanks, and the soldiers don't want to run over the civilians because the whole mission is to protect the civilians, but the civilians don't want you there, and they're making life hard for you, and they're actually like throwing Molotov cocktails and such. So yeah, well, I mean, in this particular instance that I'm talking about, there was no weapons involved, so they just had the protesters out in the street, and they were trying to get onto this, I guess, blockade or barricade from the Russian troops, and the Russian troops opened fire. So yeah, this is just going to be a thing that's going to happen now. And again, I don't want it to make it as though like Russian troops are bad, because I mean, our troops have done the same thing. So yeah, our police have done the same thing. So yeah, this is just the nature of conflict, and the people are just jumpy, and especially if you are souped up with weapons of war and equipment and trained specifically to suppress and put down any sort of threat, and you're in an hostile area where the population hates you, and they're actively like sabotaging and making partisan attacks on you, like yeah, it's gonna get bad. Like it's just, yeah, man, I don't know what Putin is thinking about doing all this. It's not worth it, man, because he's setting up the country for failure. So I want to see, at least, let me read further if there's anything else I want to comment on. But that's basically what the war is turning into. Okay, so it's turning into a stalemate. They just want to encircle these major cities, Kharkiv. Oh no, so one more point. So there's another town near Kherson, Mykolaiv, and that town has seen a counteroffensive. So, yeah, the So yeah, I mean, Mykolaiv is under the control of, or yeah, it's just contested territory. It's just, the fact that the Ukrainians are able to like mount some kind of defense and some kind of pushback, because like this is a stalemate now. So yeah, it's possible like they're gonna make what is called, from what I understand, is defeating in detail. So they have to, they have to attack isolated pockets and just wipe them out, and they have been doing that. They've been wiping out entire like armored units and like convoys, and like, dude, like this is gonna like start to wear down the war effort for Russia. So yeah, so they're starting to make counteroffensives. And again, you can read this report. That this report is far more detailed and extensive than I can ever put together. But yeah, so they're also pointing out, the ISW is pointing out immediate items to watch out. So these are basically just their predictions of what's to come. Because this war is basically like this first stage of the war, this invasion, they've declared as a failure. And I mean, yeah, because like they haven't even taken half the country. So yeah, the items that the predictions that they're making, so the things that they're trying to watch out for as this war continues to evolve, is that they predict that Mariupol will be captured by Russia within the next couple of weeks. Because I mean, this is a complete like they're just like they're just bombing the place, because I mean the fighting is just too hard in the city. So who knows where things can go, because the city is going to get destroyed. Russia will expand its air, missile, and artillery bombardments of Ukrainian cities, because the urban combat is just too hard. So they just got to do the long range, shots, and hope the cities either get just completely destroyed. I mean, they don't want to do that. They want to protect these cities and preserve it, but the populace is fighting too hard. It's just like, what the hell? So they're just gonna bomb it to bits, and then what? And you're gonna have to rebuild everything with a population that hates you. Like, come on. Russian forces will likely continue efforts to reach Kryvyi Rih and isolate Zaporizhia. So Zaporizhia is going to be a very important choke point. It's basically going to be like the heart. So once Mariupol like falls, I feel that army group in the east seriously needs to fall back. They need to fall back and go to Zaporizhia, because that's where the Russian, main effort is going to be. Although out of Kherson, they're going to probably attempt to take Zaporizhia from the west, so it could very possibly get encircled as well. So yeah, there's just so many things how this can evolve. There's so many ways that this can evolve. But yeah, continuing, Russian forces around Kiev will continue efforts to bomb forward, or to push forward into effective artillery range of the center of the city. So they're going to, they're just, they're slowly starting to encircle the city and put their artillery and long range missiles and everything into place. In fact, they used, they recently used hypersonic nuclear capable missiles against certain, I guess, either Kharkiv or Kiev. I mean, they're going to start using some serious munitions. Yeah, man, this is very scary what's about to happen. And I don't even think that like it's slowly going to get in place, but once it's in place, all they got to do is just start loading, shoot. That's all they got to do. And dude, it's going to be bad if they do it effectively, because lately they've just been performing incompetently. And also, Ukraine has been doing measures. They've been using counter battery measures and using drones to figure out, okay, where are those rockets coming from. And so yeah, man, they have a leg up. They're making some serious moves. So that's with Kiev. And then also they're saying Russian troops will continue efforts to reduce Chernihiv and Sumy. So yeah, those two cities are putting up a stiff resistance, or just all the cities are putting up a stiff resistance. And so what they have to do is level it and completely destroy the town, which in a way is actually going to work for the defenders, because then you can hide in the rubble and then You can put any kind of like anti-tank weapons in there. So it's just like, well, I have no idea what they're thinking. That what is going to happen when you move into the cities once you destroy it? The people are going to fight even harder. So yeah, man, this is a really messed up situation, and that's all I wanted to at least talk. That's what I wanted to talk about with this war, and I wanted to talk about at least some other effects that this war is having, just in general with the global markets and the global economy. And I'm reading from Al Jazeera, which is a pretty significant, and this is a pretty significant development in terms of global trade, particularly with oil, as the spice, right? So the Saudis, in the wake of this war, they haven't they haven't officially taken any sides, but they're floating the idea of accepting Yuan. So at the moment, they only accepted really US dollars for oil sales. Now so basically what that means is that when they were doing business with China would have to use their reserves of US currency to buy oil. But now Saudi Arabia wants the yuan, the Chinese yuan, or what's also called the renminbi, right? Yes, the renminbi. So that's a serious move. That is holy shit moment. So at least I wanted to quote from Al Jazeera to talk about different price movements that they made. Quote, the offshore yuan climbed as much as 0.1% to 6.3867 per dollar, close to the session peak it reached during Asian trading. The currency had weakened as much as 0.3% in U.S. trading before the report on Saudi Arabia, end quote. So, yeah, there was a pretty significant spike because there's no official report. They haven't even officially done it, but just the hype of it, whoa, just made a jump. So that's pretty serious, pretty significant, I should say. Quote, the outbreak of the Ukraine war and the swath of sanctions imposed on Russia as a result has brought to the fore questions about alternatives to U.S. currency-based markets. And the yuan is one in particular focus in light of China's relationship with Russia. Saudi Arabia's relationship with the U.S., meanwhile, has been buffeted by various issues ranging from Yemen's civil war to potential negotiations about Iran's nuclear program. So what they're saying is that in a way, Saudi Arabia has less beef with China than they do with the U.S. And so now, things are getting tight, and the U.S. is like, hey man, you got my back, and then Saudi Arabia was like, I don't know about this, because this is all about the money in the end. And of course, Saudi Arabia, it's kind of weird because in the one hand, Russia is in terms of natural gas and oil is kind of a competitor with Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, I guess Saudi Arabia also doesn't want to be pushed around because the U.S. is in a really tight spot. The West is in a really tight spot. So it's kind of like one of those situations where it's because Saudi Arabia and the Middle East has been at odds with the West for, centuries, and then they look at China and Russia and it's well, we haven't really been beefing that much, or, not as much as with the West, even though we're doing business. So again, that's my interpretation of things at least. And, things are, right now still a bit gray. But just the fact that these developments are, starting to brew, it is a sign of things to come. Let me see what else. Let me quote again. There was no indication from the Dow Jones report on the likelihood of Saudi Arabia making such a switch, nor how much of its sales might be denominated in yuan if it were to change. It does, however, signal that the conversation around alternatives to the greenback is very much a live debate. So they're quoting this basically head of marketing strategy firm in Toronto named Sasha T. Hanyi. So, quote, perhaps it's more of a sentiment boost to the potential for wider use of renminbi. Continuing, I see some of its oil, so I'm not sure how relevant it is. So, yeah, that's basically what the whole report is saying. Very early stages and nothing really definitive for the moment, but that's pretty serious. If they actually move ahead with that, in terms of trading and doing business, then that's a sign of things to come for the U.S. Not just for oil, but also with just our currency. Because the only reason our currency has any worth is because people do business with it. So, yeah, man, this is gonna be interesting. This is not necessarily like the collapse of the U.S. dollar, but it's more just like, okay, things are now even in terms of the global market and the global trading system, the economy. So yeah, that's at least what I wanted to comment for now. But yeah, I wanted to at least, I believe this is a good point to wrap up. Or at least I wanted to talk at least some, just, this weather event that's coming our way. I'm kind of like keeping an eye on this live stream. But yeah, I'm kind of like sitting on the edge of this danger zone, like the red zone for this weather system that's about to hit. So hopefully I can edit and upload this online before it really gets bad. But yeah, it's like calm, and you've probably heard some wind going on. But yeah, considering how disastrous the winter storm was, if some serious flash flooding and tornadoes come through this area, it could cause a blackout. So this could cause a serious SHTF situation. Now I got my fuel, my car is fueled up. I got my water. I actually do have some propane. I got some food. I'm ready. In fact, I'm also freezing some water jugs so I can use for refrigeration. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to see how this weather pans out. For the moment, it's actually kind of dry. It was raining for a bit, but it's still very windy. Yeah, and I definitely don't want to be out and about doing my work and then get caught in the middle of a storm. In fact, this is not the first time we've had tornado warnings in the area. I think a year ago, there was a tornado that formed just north of us, not even a mile out of town, and it moved onto a trailer park, Onalaska. It moved out there. It was an F3, they said. So that's a pretty serious storm. So hopefully nothing like that happens out here. And yeah, there's we're in the hilly area, so there's lots of runoff. I'm on the second story, so it would have to be some biblical levels of flooding to pose any threat to me. But yeah, we'll just have to see how things unfold. And I'm actually kind of surprised how they didn't cancel school or close things down. But the worst of it is going to hit tonight. So tomorrow we'll have to see what's going to happen. I'm not too worried. So I can write it out. It does suck that it's going to be at night. I'm just gonna have to find a way to stay up and weather the storm, because there's a little place where I can hide under in case we do have a storm, a tornado on our path. But yeah, yeah, and I do want to apologize for any background noise that you may have heard today. Apart from the noise, I've come to realize that this is just a loud area that I live in. Loud neighbors and loud cars, and and I live in America, so there's always police sirens going on. Yeah, so yeah, there's they have studios in my university, and I've been tempted to use them. At the same time, what I'm discussing and the subject matters that I'm discussing, it's just do I want somebody overhearing what I'm saying? Because this is not really something that I want people to. It's I'm embarrassed with what I might put out in public. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's because it's school, so it's just I'm not really. going to be school friendly, to say the least. Discussing some very dark subject matters. But anyway, it's just like I have to find a way to make a quiet spot, or I can probably maybe do something in my closet, but it's really tight and I want to be all claustrophobic. But yeah, it's just something that I'm gonna have to bear with, and I do apologize. I try to at least like reduce the noise and post editing, but there's only so much that I can do. But anyway, other than that, I do appreciate y'all, bearing with me and listening with me, and I'm in a position where like I can really only do this podcast where I can just hit record and then I guess rant and rave for an hour or so, and yeah, there's so much that I want to do. It's just like I don't necessarily have the skills for it, nor the time for it, or the resources, the hardware, the software. It's just there's so much that I want to do, but at the very least, I know where the ambitions that I have, where they are. It's just a matter of dedicating my time. I'm trying my best with DoorDash stuff, but with this, with these gas prices, like I guess this golden age of gig work is just done. So I'm trying to see if I can get some remote work. It's gonna be interesting how I'm gonna work out my school schedule, although we're kind of like reaching the last half of our school time, or the semester. Yeah, but otherwise, that's just something that I have to figure out daily. But I just want to like I keep thinking like, okay, I just need this, and then I can do what I need to do. And it's just like, no, whenever I reach that stage, there's always some other obstacle in the way, so then I can't reach it. So I just got to do it. But I know what I want to do. It just like requires like true research. Like I actually have to get books and such, and like because since I'm studying a history degree, I've been thinking of doing history podcasts where I do effectively just like audio documentaries on a specific SHTF and apocalyptic situations in history. I figured it's a lot easier to talk about past events, fucked up situations, than ones that are happening right now or may happen down the line. Because people don't want to imagine, stuff like starvation and famines and plagues and cannibalism and rape and murders and all that stuff. Like they don't want to think about that happening in their lifetime. But they're more content with reading about it, like hundreds or thousands of years ago. It's a lot easier to digest that. But anyway, and I'm not trying to trivialize those things. It's just, I feel like it's important to at least, if we're gonna talk about SHTF and collapse and the apocalypse in our lifetime, it might do us good to look at situations where people have truly like, in a way, people have lived through like true like mass extinction events, like the Mount Toba eruption. Humanity was like reduced to like about 10,000 individuals. Like that's crazy. Like yeah, so yeah, that's just something that like I'm thinking about, which is going to require more time and energy, and and like I live basically like day to day, so it's just like how can I do that? So I'm just telling y'all that, at least so you don't think like this is the only thing that I want to do, because like I know that this is not necessarily like the culminations of my work, because I know I can do more. It's just like I'm so limited. But anyway, it's just I just want to talk at least, because this is really like the only place I can really talk. Sometimes it's like be my true self, right? It's like, so I just saw the Batman. Great movie, by the way. Perfect movie. Like I still don't know how I didn't manage to go to the bathroom. Like it didn't feel like 3 hours to me. But I'm gonna spoil it. So at this point, skip ahead like I guess like a couple minutes or so. There's a scene right where he figures out the Riddler, and they go to like this encrypted message, this video message, and like, oh, what is this? Okay, and so they type it in and they load up the message, and then they have the Riddler. He just comes on. He's like, hey guys, thank you so much, because like the Riddler has like this channel, and so he has like 500 followers, so he's like a content creator, like mystery dude. Like, hey guys, thanks so much for watching, and I really appreciate what we've done together. It's just been a crazy journey for us. Like, that's in a way I'm just like, damn, this is very relatable. Like, cause I just I don't know how else to express my gratitude for those who listen to me, even though like the stuff that I put out is like it's lacking. Like it's I know there's more. There's more, but or maybe maybe I'm just being too hard on myself. But I just yeah, you have this world in your head that you want to put out there, but your skills are so limited. So anyway, thank you for listening. I'll try to get something out, and hopefully this weather doesn't fuck us up. But yeah, I appreciate y'all listening, and tune in, hang in there. Thank you.